Welcome to Lift and Make Lighter. I'm Tom Telford here with Zach Goulding. Zach, this is fun.
Yeah,
There are a lot of great conversations that I get to have doing this, but few revolve around bikes. So I'm pretty stoked about this
yes, absolutely.
to
Thanks for
dive
having me.
in. Yeah, definitely. Carbon fiber is a problem in my home, in my house, in my life. So let's talk about carbon fiber coping for just a second.
Okay.
Does that have you struggling too?
A little bit, yeah. I steer clear of a lot of the carbon fiber. I'm kind of the old school aluminum guy. I'm a bigger guy, so I gotta, stick with the strong metals there. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, you're a bike lover, which means you're a friend of Lift and Make Lighter, and especially at Levo for a number of reasons. But give us a little bit of background. Tell us about you, who you are, what you're doing. You are practicing in a unique niche, and it's working. Clearly, the youth of today who need this and need you, frankly, you're a gift that way. Tell us more about that.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me. Yeah, so I started doing therapy. Well, let's back up. I went to school at Utah Valley University. Wasn't quite sure what I wanted to get into. And as I was talking with my wife, she was like, have you thought about social work? And I was like, social work, that's weird, like, I don't know. But I always really connected with kids, and I thought I would get into coaching. I thought I would, I love basketball and that sort of thing. And as I coached and got into it, I always found myself drawn to the kids that were a little bit different, the kids that didn't perform as well, or the kids that,
Yeah.
struggled. And so the social work aspect of it, as I got into it and started taking some classes, I I was supposed to do like volunteer hours, and I started going to this juvenile detention center,
Yeah.
and it just clicked. I was like, this is, I love this. The people here are wonderful, not just the kids, but the other staff and the other therapists that were there. So I had some awesome mentors that kind of taught me a little bit, and I was like, this is what I want to do. So as I continue on throughout my schooling at Utah Valley University, I got my bachelor's degree there, and then I went to University of Utah, and I got my master's degree in social work. And then as I just kind of thought, oh, I'd just go into kind of administration of juvenile justice and just kind of work that route. But I really fell in love with the individual therapy aspect of it, just really connecting with somebody and seeing their progress over time through the internships and stuff. And one of my internships was with a youth crisis shelter here in Utah County. And again, I love that aspect. These kids were going through all sorts of different struggles, foster care, parents in and out of jail. They had no place to be. They were there with us. Trouble with the law, all different reasons. And as I started working there, I loved it. And so when I finished up my schooling, I stayed connected with them, and luckily a job opened up, and I was able to
Hmm.
fit my way into there and start working there. And it's a heavy work, dealing with kids that struggle with all sorts of different things, trauma. Again, their parents going through stuff and family things. And you just see, I always kind of joked that, like, it feels like a TV show. Every day was a new episode. Some kid breaking a window and running
Yeah.
through, the cops showing up.
Yeah.
Like, you never knew. It was always it was exciting. It was a lot of fun. And as I was working there, I love bike riding, and I started biking to work more. I started commuting. And I noticed that on the days that I would commute and bike to work, I just felt so much lighter. I felt so
Mm.
much more free.
Yeah.
I'd come home and just be like I'd be able to process the day a little bit more. And I kind of thought back to my schooling, and there was a professor that would tell me, if you're in this work, you have to have a daily ritual or a daily routine to kind of cleanse your mind
Yeah.
from the heaviness of what you're dealing with. And I never really found that until I started commuting to work.
Mm.
And I was like, there's something powerful to this. I grew up riding bikes and jumping bikes in the desert and all sorts of different things. But I really started to see the utilitarian factor of commuting and how that really just spoke to me. Anyways, fast forward a little bit, and I still stayed with this agency for a long time, and we started a new crisis shelter in northern Utah County. So I was still able to ride along the Murdoch Trail, go up there. It was a little bit longer commute, but I'd get up there, and some of the boys that I were working with, they saw that I would ride, and they'd say, "Hey, can we ride a bike with you?" And I was like, no." That was my first initial reaction. But then I thought, well, maybe, like, let me talk to, my supervisors and stuff. Let me figure this out and see. And, there was a perfect 1 mile road, a perfect 1 mile loop that was on this campus that was set aside from all these different cars. And it just became like this perfect loop that I could ride with these boys. And I took a bike up there. I took my bike up
Wow.
there, and I found something that these same hardened boys that I'd be on the couch with them. They'd be on the couch and I'd be asking them questions in the therapy room. They'd just give me the, I don't know, no, shut up, like, multiple explicitives.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, when I was riding a bike with them around the circle, that 1 mile circle, I'd ask them a question and they would just open up the same exact question. And they would just open up. They'd open up about, their different trauma, the different things they were going through. And I was like, there is something to this movement, this going
Yeah.
on. And we would do a mile and they'd say, can we do another one? Can we do another one? Can we do another one? 8, 9 miles later, we're still talking and we're still riding. I was like, this is powerful. This is
Mm.
awesome. So I would do that for a lot of the kids I worked with there, and just I found so much enjoyment out of just kind of helping them open up and move that way. And so many of them would be like, I hadn't ridden a bike since I was a kid, and these are already kids or teenagers, but
Yeah.
it's been since I was a little kid, and who taught you how to ride a bike and all these things. And it would just easily transition to these conversations about their family and who they are and where they want to be. And there was like, I want to ride my bike more. I want to get a bike more. So that was a really cool, rewarding experience. And as I did that for a couple of years, and it just came to a point in my career that I was ready for a little bit of a change of pace. And so I kind of joined the private sector of things. And I've always had that in the back of my mind, though, this movement and the bike riding and how that can really benefit and help people. And so that's kind of what I based my practice off now, is a lot of that movement and getting people out and moving. So whether that's me encouraging them to ride on their own, or every once in a while within a session, I have an office here, and we work through things in the office and in session. But we also might go out on the path. And some people hear that and they say, "That's crazy! Like, what? That's not safe. Like, there's cars. How do you do that?" Well, there's a protected path, the Murdoch Canal Trail. It's over 10 feet wide, and when you get out there and you're riding just along the path with them, it's safe. There's no other cars around. With the mountains right there, it's healing, and that bilateral stimulation, that movement, really does something to your brain, and it helps you open up to a lot of different things. So for some, especially teen boys, that really, really speaks to them. And so we can kind of incorporate some of those writing sessions
Yeah.
within what I'm doing. So that's a little bit how I came to where I'm at now. But yeah, a lot of the why was just because of connecting with people and hearing their struggles and being curious and wanting to
Yeah.
help with them. So yeah,
Well, I'm curious.
yes, yeah.
I'm super curious now. So talk about the science of what you're describing. What do you think was going on in, the minds and the brains of the individual who on the couch were locked up
Yeah.
versus outside, they're taking in air, experiencing nature, maybe serotonin. I mean, what do you
Yep.
think was the difference there from a therapeutic perspective?
Yeah. If you look at the principles of EMDR, eye movement,
Yeah.
desensitization, it's bilateral. You're moving. And in fact, Dr. Shapiro, who founded EMDR, she came up with it on a walk. As she was trying to figure something out, she was walking around her office and just really kind of, as she was working through some of her thoughts, moving back and forth, it really helped her kind of process those things. And we know that when we experience some kind of trauma or some kind of stress, that energy can stay trapped within our bodies. And so often we, as a society, we get just so locked into just being sedentary. We go from our box of a house to our box of a car to our box of an office and then back and forth.
Yeah.
The most we walk is, I don't know, maybe 100 steps back and forth between those things, unless we're intentionally seeking out. And so this movement of getting that bilateral stimulation going and literally helping you process, it's how we go through, like when we sleep at night, like our eyes are moving back and forth and we're processing the day. But if that's disrupted, then those memories of that trauma stays trapped and you can't really process it. So as you're moving and discussing some of those things and processing it, it literally helps your mind sort out where that is into a healthy pattern of being like able to live with that and move. And then, yeah, you factor in the nature aspect of it. And there's been so much research out there that shows when we're exposed to more green spaces, our stress levels decrease, our depression levels decrease, our motivation increases, and just feeling more connected with nature, higher power, God, the universe, like whatever that is, there's a community aspect of that as well. And so you mix all of that in together. And that's why I'm such a big believer in active transportation, specifically bike riding in that movement, because what it can do for your brain and also your body. So that's a little bit of like again, if you just research, the exercise and how that helps. I mean, there's research out there that shows that exercise is just as effective, if not more, than a lot of medications for things, right?
Amen. I mean, this is exactly right. And I love hearing the science behind it because I think so many people think, how does that actually move chemical?
Yeah.
So if you think about depression or anxiety or some of these, mental health challenges that people are facing today, it's an interesting dilemma to try to think through, how do you move them?
Mm.
If you think about depression as kind of being stuck or anxiety as a stuck kind of emotion that you're like, man, I feel stuck in my life. Like
Yeah.
I can't really move anywhere. It's an interesting concept to try to think that through, that writing this out is literally writing it out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you use that term in terms of podcast or some of the things that you're putting on social media, but is that the literal writing out of stuckness,
Yeah. Absolutely.
trauma?
Yeah.
So talk more about that
Yeah.
because I actually see this in my own life. I want to
Mhm.
speak about that maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
The stress of running a company, being an entrepreneur the last, 25 plus years. Without going to therapy, at some point during my late 20s, I recognized that movement unlocked everything.
Yep.
And I didn't know what was going on. It's like, well, I like to ride bikes and I was an
Yeah.
athlete or whatever. But it was only when I stopped doing those things, in my early 20s, school, work, young married guy. And then at one point thinking, I'm stuck in life.
Mhm.
Literally, like I'm now the husband, father, provider, kind of a stuck in a role, but started to realize I'm either going to eat my feelings and get
Mhm.
huge,
Mhm.
which is a problem, or I can start to stay active. Well, when I returned to the activity, it wasn't just that I lost weight and started to feel well physically, something changed in my brain.
Yeah.
And it was moving through emotions that I didn't necessarily
Mhm.
even cue into. So
Yeah.
coach me up a little bit,
Uh,
as the writing coach and the professional therapist, what was going on in me that you think was, changed by movement?
Yeah, I think it's interesting how you recognize that therapy also helped, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not here to say bike riding is going to solve all your problems. Solve a lot of them. Can also give you a lot more. But that that habit, that ritual, that routine opens up your brain to be able to learn, opens up to be able to process. And when you're out on that bike ride, you're thinking things through. You're going back and forth, and so it's opening up. I love the word emotion. Like it's meant to put you in motion. Like when you experience those emotions, you got to move, you got to work through them, whatever is going on. And so with that movement, for in your sake, working through the stress and everything that's going on, it puts your brain into position to being open to other things, and then being able to say like, oh wow, yeah, I've never really thought of that way, and maybe I should talk to somebody about these things. Maybe I should look into therapy, or maybe I do need to make some adjustments with my relationships or with business or whatever else. And so just putting your brain in that moment of being able to handle some of that distress and working through it, and then increasing your ability to handle difficult situations, right? And so um, I love how you spoke to that of moving through it. And sometimes when we go for a ride with some of the people that I work with, I'll ask them, how far did you think we gone? Like at the end, because we're riding, we're talking, 45 minutes or whatever. And sometimes the kids will be like, I don't know, like mile or two. And I say, we went 6 miles. What? Like 6 miles? And they've never thought of, I could never ride 6 miles in my life, but it's nice and flat. It's nice and
Yeah.
easy. And as you're talking, but then all of a sudden that empowers them of being like, if I can ride 6 miles on my bike, like where can I go with that? Like I could, again, I'm a big believer in active transportation. You think of the majority of our trips, the majority of our
Yeah.
car trips are 3 to 5 miles. That's an easily bikeable distance. And then all of a sudden it empowers that kid of like, oh, I can ride to school. I can ride to the library. I can go to my
Yeah.
church. I can go to my friend's house. And then that movement empowers them to start to, and then you translate that into other areas of your life, and you connect those dots of like, if I can work through that, these other emotions or these other traumas, like I can move
Yeah.
through these as well and kind of sit with them. So there's this power of movement.
Oh,
that
that's
I
so
love.
good, man. I'm just like gobbling this up right now because I mean, even in the last 2 minutes of you describing that, I think you said the word can like 20 times.
Mm,
Right. And in my head, oftentimes, whether it's at Levo or Brainstoke or the things that we're involved in, my passion is around that. of can do.
Yeah.
That there's a whole generation growing up thinking I can't do a lot of things.
Yeah.
And they see social media of all the things they can't do or that makes them feel small. And movement for me became, dopamine literally became the can do drug. It's a slow drip of can do sauce,
Yeah.
and so I love just hearing you say that word can over and over because you described physically, what was going on. These kids thought, well, now I can ride 6 miles in 45 minutes.
Mhm.
But you're saying something greater about their ability to cope with anything.
Yeah.
What's going on at school? What's going on at home? The more that dopamine or whatever you want to call it, at Brainstoke, we often refer to it as getting your daily dose,
Mhm.
the DOSE, the dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins.
Yeah.
What are you doing to put that in your brain? When you give it to your brain, as you know, the brain doesn't say only when I'm riding a bike.
Yeah.
It doesn't compartmentalize it to one thing that you start to gain confidence in your can-do ability in everything.
Yeah.
So when you see, when you've had clients of yours that kind of start this process and they're starting to move and they're getting that can-do drug, how does it impact other parts of their life?
Mhm.
School, family, relationships. Do you see that indirectly?
Yeah.
They may not recognize it, but you start to kind of smirk and go,
Yeah.
something's changing.
There was one direct association with it. There was a teen boy that I was working with, and he had some different health issues like scoliosis in his back and everything. Right. His dad bought him a pretty cool mountain bike hardtail. Nothing super expensive, but something that,
Yeah.
hey, if you're gonna ride, like let's get into this a little bit. Well, anyways, he would ride with me, and then he'd ride at home, and then we did that pretty regularly. And then he went to his doctor, and the doctor said, what's going on with your back? Like it's 98% better, like something crazy. And he looked at his parents like, I don't know. And he's like, what have you been doing? He's like, I've been riding my bike. And the doctor's like, you need to do more of that. Like it's literally straightening out your back and the movement, like it's helping in so many
Yeah,
areas. So
totally.
that's a physical area, right? But then yeah, the other areas of as far as just managing emotions, managing stress, managing addictive types of behaviors. There's another young adult male that I work with, and he wanted to start getting into biking. And I mostly work with him telehealth. We discuss things through telehealth, but he's always telling me about his rides, and he's
Yeah.
big into it. Anyways, yeah, he bought a bike, and I had kind of say your wife's not gonna want to have you come to therapy with me anymore because he's bought 3 bikes, since me and him. Um, but
That's the other side of the coin,
exactly,
right?
exactly.
Oh,
You got them all on a good deal and, secondhand and different things. But he's talked about how it's helped him so much manage his emotions, specifically like electronic and pornography kind of addictive behaviors, compulsive behaviors, where he can get on ride and just kind of work through stuff and channel that obsessiveness into another kind of healthy aspect of it. And I'm reminded of this book, that I've been reading. I love it. It's called How Cycling Can Save the World, right? But in one of the things it talked about, if you took all of the side effects of bike riding, right? If you took all the different things that, yes, can get you from point A to point B, absolutely,
yeah.
totally can. If you look at all the side effects, the mental health, the emotional health, the physical benefits of that, if you took all of those benefits and put them into a pill and told people like this is what it can do for you, there would be a line out the globe around the corner. And the person that would invent that pill would probably win some kind of Nobel Peace Prize, right? And saying
100%.
like, here it is, right?
Totally.
But we shy away from that movement. We shy away from that work because we kind of default to just the status quo of just like least resistance,
Yeah.
right? Because we want that dopamine. It's there. But if I can get it by scrolling on my phone, then sure, I'm just going to do that. But if we can channel that movement into something that where we're actually getting benefits in all these other areas, that's a healthy
Yeah.
dose of that dopamine. Because I hear so many times people saying, and dopamine is kind of the buzzword right now, but they always say, oh, I'm addicted to dopamine. I'm dopamine dependent upon stuff. Like, what do you mean by that? Well, I'm always on my phone. I'm always scrolling. I'm always eating. I'm always doing something. I always need some kind of drip
Yeah.
going. And so it's like, okay, that's not bad. That's your brain. Like that's how we've evolved and stayed, survival tactics is because if we don't eat and if we don't
Yeah.
procreate, then we all die. And so, but it's kind of working against us now where we have whatever we want right there, literally at our fingertips. Like some of my clients, they don't leave their house because they order their food and they, everything is online. And so helping them kind of move
Yeah.
and recognize that I can do these things and move through it. And whether it's walking and saying, hey, next time you want a DoorDash, consider just walking. Consider just walking to the restaurant,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
let's just try that. Oh man, I don't know. That's pretty hard. Well, just, think about it, right? I'm not here to force anybody to do it, just but offer considerations and then see how you feel afterwards. My bank account's going to be a lot better, but I also get the movement or the benefit of moving
Yeah.
and just breaking up a lot of those thoughts. And so just introducing new ideas of that movement.
Until you said that a couple minutes ago, I've actually never thought to myself, emotion is
Yeah.
motion,
Yeah.
in that component. And you're talking about something that I want you to think through, and respond to. This concept, we hear, like you said, a lot about dopamine today.
Mhm.
And I hear often cheap or lazy dopamine
Yeah.
versus earn your dopamine or, productive dopamine.
Mhm.
So can you just talk a little bit about the difference between the two and then talk more about scrolling?
Mhm.
Because in my opinion, scrolling has become I did some background in reading a few months ago on who created scrolling. That it was literally a man who created the mechanism of scroll
Yeah.
and to slow scroll and why it became such a thing and why today it obviously is addicting.
Yeah.
So, I mean, can you speak to that a
Was
little bit
that, I'm
more?
curious, was it the gambling thing or what? Tell me where the scrolling came from.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't gambling. It was, the literal man who came up with the idea of the scrolling motion as a way for social media, Facebook,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, think of that. Just so instead of swiping
Yeah.
necessarily,
Sure.
why is scrolling?
Mm.
Why was that the mechanism that someone said,
Mm.
hey, if we're going to create an app, something that does this, and this is how you just interact with and behave with an app,
Yeah.
how would you interact with it instead of tapping the screen
Sure.
to go to the next
Yeah.
reel or the
Interesting.
next why scroll?
Yeah.
And I mean, it was very intentional that they came up with what does the human, the brain feels like it is moving, it's being productive.
Yeah. Mhm.
And they did it intentionally
Sure.
to trick the brain to
Yeah.
like feel like, well, I'm moving, and the brain thinks that this is a productive
Yep.
activity.
Yeah.
We all know now the ramifications, right? I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
the Surgeon General, everybody's like, there's a whole generation who are on fire.
Yeah.
They're lonely, they're depressed, they're anxious. Their brains believe that they're in motion,
Right.
but they're sitting with their thumb, the only thing moving.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
speak to that.
Yeah. No, and the reason why I brought up the gambling thing, I've heard of, back in, I don't know, whenever it was, the 70s or something, they originally had just regular slot machines at casinos with just the basic combinations that you could
Yeah.
get, right? But then the casino owner saw his kid or his grandkid playing a video game like Pong or just a basic thing, and how kind of addictive that video screen was. And then he had this light bulb idea that was like, well, what if we incorporated video screens onto gambling? And then all of a sudden there's multiple different combinations, but where people really get hooked, because you have so many different combinations, it's not just the 777 that you win. Now it can be a million different combinations that you feel
A
like you're
seven, a
winning.
cherry, and
Yeah.
a grape, or yeah.
And even though you're losing your money, you feel like you're winning because you're like, oh, I got this much back or this, you're working towards it. And so they've incorporated kind of this addictive behavior of the video screen and how entrancing that can be to somebody and how they feel, oh, I'm being productive, but you're really not, but it's hooking you.
Yeah.
And so those, casino companies had figured it out decades ago. And now all of a sudden social media has been studying,
Yeah.
well, what makes people keep going back and wasting all their money? They know that they're going to lose their money, but it's the idea of, oh, I'm going to have this big hit, right? Well, it's kind of a smaller scale now on social media. It's like, oh, if I get a hit of that funny cat video or this or that, then there's that quick little dopamine that's like, oh, cool. And then you keep kind of foraging and looking for that next hit. And that's, again, a kind of our biological response is we think that we're being productive by foraging and doing all those things because that's where we're programmed to go out and, kill something, bring it back, eat it. And like that's
It's a reward mechanism.
yeah, the reward. Yeah, basic reward.
Yeah.
And so now all of a sudden that reward has been hacked by a way with, social media and phones to where we think, oh, I'm being productive, I'm moving, I'm scrolling, and I'm learning something. And I'm on social media, and I try to put out some positivity stuff out there and try to influence and inspire other people to
Yeah.
get out and ride and move and stuff. And I feel that too. I feel like, oh man, I'm being productive because if I scroll here, then that's helping me with these other things. And it's like, no, my brain is just tricking me. I'm not being productive. I'm sitting here.
You're
moving my thumb.
literally being productive at
Mhm.
being unproductive.
Right.
As soon as I started to cue into that concept of like, wait, I'm getting good at,
Yeah.
my brain is rewarding me for
Yeah.
literally chilling.
Right. For hours. Yeah. And
Fascinating.
and with the video game aspect, I'm not here to hate on video games. There's so much of it though that just adds to that, just being locked in and just stuck
Yeah.
and not really doing anything because you're getting this kind of faux reward of, oh, I took care of my whole farm and I fed all these animals, right? Produced all these things, right? Completed all these missions. I'm grinding it out in this digital world, and then all of a sudden, oh, but I've just been sitting here the whole time. But in your mind, your mind has been tricked to say, I'm being productive.
Yeah.
So again, there's a time and place to learn from some of the
Sure.
technology and finding a balance within it. But a lot of times, yeah, it just becomes debilitating. We just become stuck and we're not really sure how we get out of it. Because I mean, I've talked to some people, yeah, when a new video game comes out, I mean, it's scary. Like they can play it for 24 hours at a time with no food or drink. Like it becomes a hazard, right? And so you again finding a balance and finding appropriate ways to manage some of that stuff. And so with our movement and by being able to, I biked to work today and I felt great. Work might have not been great, but man, I feel good because I moved my body and I was productive.
Yeah.
And there's something about getting somewhere on your own power that's so empowering of saying I did that, right? Whether walking or biking or whatever, and that brings on that confidence. So
Mm.
I love that aspect of it too, just being able to move and recognize like I did this. I put in the effort and the power and the work, and it got me to this place.
It's amazing. So cool. I mean, you're pulling things together now where I'm thinking there are foreign countries, that Europe, different places where if you think just about the health of the people and their productivity and how often they are active, walking or riding bikes to work,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it makes sense to me why some of the health of these other countries are what they are and what the US is. So
Absolutely. Yeah. If you look at just on that point real quick, if you look at like the healthiest or happiest countries in the world, yeah, most of them are these countries, these Scandinavian countries where they have prioritized active transportation
yeah.
because it's moving, you're moving through stuff, and it's also community. You're connecting with your community, you're talking to people, and that social aspect is something that we're losing out on like tremendously here
Yeah.
within the United States.
Say more about that because and we mentioned this a little bit before we hit record, on this, but Surgeon General, you know, talked about social media, youth and social media implications this last year. Also spoke heavily about um, senior citizens, people who are aged, in life that are major loneliness, factors.
Yeah.
From your perspective, from a mental health clinician perspective, how are you seeing loneliness impacting people today? And how is social media, a component of that?
Yeah. That's a hard double-edged sword. Absolutely. The loneliness is something that is so common, especially within, I'm not here to discount a woman's experience, but especially within males, especially within young adult males, also middle-aged males. Like so many of my clients that are within that age range always say, I don't have a friend. I don't have somebody to talk to. I don't have somebody that I connect with or I go out and do things with. Women are a little bit more tribal in that fact that they can get together and talk with stuff. Again, that doesn't say that all women are that way, but
Yeah.
they have that skill or that ability to be social and connect within that. But men, it's almost like we compartmentalize so many things, right? And we don't have those connections, that loneliness. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a scary and a sad thought, but yeah, a lot of times people will say like loneliness is like just as detrimental to your health as smoking.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, you're like, well, man, I would never pick up a pack of cigarettes. Like that's crazy. Like, cause I know of all the health risks. Well, loneliness has a lot of those similar health risks because of the stress, because of
Yeah.
just the isolation and what that can do to your thoughts versus just having a good conversation with somebody and connecting on that social aspect. It changes everything. Right. And so
Yeah.
within the therapy world, that's something that we work on so much. And it's meeting the client where they're at. You know, you're not shaming them. You're like, you don't have any friends? Like, what the heck? You know, like, because then all of a sudden they're off put and like, yeah, what is wrong with me? You know?
Yeah.
But it's the art and the skill of being able to connect with somebody on a professional level, but then also helping them recognize like, hey, what you're going through is pretty tough, and a lot of other people are going through that too.
Yeah.
And have you ever considered about, joining a cooking class? Have you ever considered, talking to your neighbor or calling up your friend from back in the day, and you're able to work through some of those barriers or some of those thinking patterns of where their hang up is with that, and really kind of open it up and
Yeah.
teasing it out, and then just saying, it's not as hard or bad as you think it might be in your mind. It's actually a pretty common thing
Yeah.
to work through some of that loneliness. So yeah, it's a common thing in the therapy.
Yeah. I mean, even hearing you describe that, I mean, I'm thinking in the last 2 weeks, at least 7 to 10 conversations I've had with friends of mine about their children,
Yeah.
or men my age who saw me post something on social media reached out to me. One in particular on a Sunday. I mean, I don't really know him, but he reached out and just said, this is random. I saw a post on social media. Would you be interested in talking to me a little bit? I mean, we spent an hour on a Sunday evening, frankly, with someone who I know him from my childhood a little bit, but a relative stranger to me. What he described to me was one of the saddest things I've ever heard.
Mm.
And so this concept of connection or lack of connection and loneliness,
Yeah.
literally people who are debilitated or not functioning in life because they are so lonely.
Yeah.
And the saddest part of it is, um, how do you tell someone to learn how to become a friend?
Mm. Right.
I mean, right? I mean,
Yeah.
talk about an interesting skill to not know.
Sure.
I mean, you can end up at Levo
Yeah.
and talk to our providers thinking, well, there's got to be a medication to learn how to be a
Right.
friend.
Right.
No, it's right. It's a life skill. It's something that when we were young, I mean, recess or playing outside,
Yeah.
so much of play was really scaffolding how to interact with and make friendships and to create peers. Now, if you go home from school and the message at school was stranger danger, run inside your house before you get kidnapped.
Right.
Now you're inside your house and you're on a device, right? And so this cycle, this kind of reinforcing loop
Yeah.
is such a challenging thing to disrupt. When you have clients who come to you and they may be in their teens or young adults and they say, I don't know how to make friends. How do you start? I
Yeah.
mean, what do you do with that?
Yeah. A lot of times we start to focus on their strengths, things that they're good at, things that they enjoyed when they were kids. I'm thinking of a specific client that right now that he's, same thing. And he's like, I don't have any friends. I don't know. And I was like, well, tell me like what you did as a kid. And he loved soccer, right? He loved playing soccer. It wasn't like all-star in high school or anything, but he played competitively and everything. And have you ever thought about joining an intramural team or a rec team or something else? And he's like, yeah, I have, but then you start talking yourself out of a lot of things.
Yeah, of course.
And then
Awkward.
yeah,
Yeah.
just that, I don't know how I'm going to interact, and I don't know about the scheduling. And so you can think of 10 different reasons. They're not excuses. They're reasons to say, I can't do this, versus saying, finding 10 reasons to do it. And again, we will default to like least restrictive or least invasive, or, just the easiest way, and be like, if that's too hard, I'm not going to do that. So pushing past that first initial discomfort and saying, how can I do this? And this is where, for social media and media, or just the internet in general, can be such a tool to be able to find a group, to be able to find something that you're involved with, whether it be different meetup groups or, friendship groups, or, whatever it is. You can find your herd, you can find your tribe.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful. And people are able to do that online. And I've met some amazing people worldwide through the podcasting and different things I've been doing, and being able to connect through bikes. And the things that has enriched those connections even more is meeting them in person. Like, it's so cool to meet with somebody and be able to talk with them,
That's
like
rad.
we're doing. And but just so using those devices, as a tool to find those groups or find those things, find something that you were passionate about as a kid. Maybe it was Dungeons and Dragons. Maybe it's playing a board game. And there's so many board game shops around here in this area that they do a game night, right? Where they go and they connect, and that's awesome. What do you think about walking there, right? So incorporating some different things. And
So why that? Go back to that, because you're referencing something I think that a lot of, frankly, I have two, adult children.
Yeah.
One's 24, one's 21, and they are asking me these questions too about friendships and loneliness,
Yeah.
and how do they scaffold bravery
Yeah.
or confidence to
Mm.
do that?
Mhm.
Why does movement, again, I mean, again,
Yeah.
you said the word can't several times there, and I'm just thinking,
Yeah.
if you're not comfortable yet to dive into a new community or a friendship group or
Yeah.
put yourself out there, can you start with movement? Because movement's going to give you the slow drip of I can,
Yeah.
a little bit of bravery juice,
Yeah. Yeah.
in the brain. So
Yeah.
say more about that. Just
In my mind, and this was like a hurdle that I kind of had to come over with bike commuting. I'm a tall guy. I've always like not wanted to stand out. I usually wear black. I'm usually like try to hide in the corner because someone
yeah,
sees me like, oh, there's that tall guy again. Like
yeah.
what is
Doesn't
he?
he ride a 62?
Yeah, I have a
Frame size
63.
big.
Yeah, XXL, like big. Um, and when I started commuting, I was like, man, like, what are people going to think of me? What are they? They're going to see me.
Yeah,
They're going to, like this or that. And I've really had to like own taking up space and just saying, I'm wearing my high vis and you're going to see me and I don't care. And like, this is who I am.
yeah,
And so you learn to be vulnerable in that aspect. I mean, there's nothing more vulnerable about being on a bike with traffic. Like at any moment, like you're faced with your mortality. And honestly, I think that that's kind of another impact of biking that you like at any moment, like I can be dead at any moment. Like, am
yeah,
I okay with that? And so, that speaks to so many other things that I try to work with advocacy,
yeah,
better bike lanes to get more people out. But just the act of being vulnerable and taking up space. And just because if you think about it, when you're driving and you see somebody in America,
yeah.
within our community, specifically in Utah, if you see somebody walking down the road, you stare at them. You're like, what's that? What's that person doing? Why are they walking? Like, that's weird. And a lot of times if we know them, we
Their
pull.
car must be broken.
Yeah, a lot of times if we know them, we pull over. I have this happen to me all the
Yeah,
time in my
yeah.
neighborhood. They pull over. Hey, do you need a ride, Zach? Like, where are you going? I'm good. I'm walking to the church over here. Like, I'm all right. Like, thank you. I appreciate it. Like, okay, you're sure? Yeah, no, I'm walking for my mental health. Like, that's what I say.
Yeah,
So the aspect of like putting yourself out there and being seen, that creates a sense of confidence that like,
yeah,
hey, like I don't care what other people think about me. Like I don't. Like I'm gonna do this because it's helpful for me. And then you gain that confidence again by saying, hey, I made it to the store. I made it to this area on my own by my own power. And it brings that confidence. And so unfortunately, we live in a society where, yes, a lot of our trips are super close, but we live in a very car-centric world where it's hard to
yeah,
break through that. And if, you commute on the freeway or whatever else, that's a really difficult task to, you know, ride your bike 40 miles or whatever. So finding moments and opportunities when you can incorporate that by just going to the store or just, walking to your library or something else,
yeah.
it brings on so much confidence and calmness too, because as you're walking, as you're riding, again, you're connecting with nature, you're outside and you're moving. So
You said something there about be seen,
yeah,
and I don't care what people think about me. I mean, you're referencing identity.
yeah,
Speak more to that and why that becomes a key component of, staving off, being lonely or I can't make friends or I
mhm,
mean, what does identity, you know, play in this overall role of just
yeah.
happiness, joy, fulfillment, in life?
Yeah. My session this morning, right before this, was talking to a young adult guy about his self-defeating image, self-defeating thoughts, just kind of, and it goes back to, when he was being bullied as a middle schooler and how he's just kind of stuck within that loop and where but how he's now been able to kind of recognize, like, I'm happy with who I am and I'm happy being seen. Like, this is who I am and I'm okay with going through all these things. And so that self-identity, a lot of times we can have these self-deprecating thoughts and just discounting all the positives and just focus on, oh man, well, I didn't do this right and I didn't do that other thing right and this, and it just spirals and it can get pretty dark for some people
Yeah.
at times, and where they think, I don't know if I can get out of this, right? And so finding exit ramps off of that spiral, finding ways to disrupt some of those thought patterns by saying, well, what were some good things what were some positive things that I did? So some healthy things that I did. I apologize. I try not to frame it as good or bad or healthy.
Yeah.
Like
It's all good.
positive or negative, because at the end of the day, it comes down to healthy versus unhealthy.
Yeah.
Like, what is healthy for me, and what are the healthy thinking processes? So there's no shame involved with it, but it's just saying, I want to be in a healthier mindset. So I'm going to think about some healthy things that I did for myself. Like, what are some things that I did to care for myself? What are some things that I did to care for other people today? And what are some things that I did to care for the environment or my world? And if we start to incorporate that and tune into who I am and the things that I do, then that helps with that self identity. But I'm not worried about what other people think. I'm not worried about what I think about myself, because what I think about myself, it's actually healthy, actually
Yeah.
positive. And not in a narcissistic way, but in a way of just saying, these are some things I can work on. These are some things I need some improvement. But I'm also pretty stoked with what I'm doing, and
Yeah.
the movement and the progress that I'm making.
So good. And there's so much there that you're describing. We oftentimes frame it in, well, it must be youth or someone who's really struggling in life, who benefits from these things.
Yeah.
I mean, if I pull out my phone right now,
Mhm.
just for listeners, people watching this, I'm on a thread this morning,
Yeah.
and the thread has 20 something guys on it.
Cool.
Majority of them are probably, I'm going to say, from 40 years old to 55.
Yeah.
There's probably 5 to 7 of them who are maybe in their 20s. And the thread is a group of people who love cycling.
Yeah. Mhm.
And on the thread, most of them married, several that are, have children, fathers, and, you know, executives. There's multimillionaires, billionaire, I mean, there's very successful men
Yeah.
for many reasons. When you sit, with any of them on a group ride or when we're out together, it's amazing how important this community, this thread in
Yeah.
particular,
Yeah.
is to how well they do in life,
Right.
how happy they are, what they're doing. From a biking perspective, the majority of them on the thread, I would call them roadies.
Mhm.
Well, in the last 24 hours, the majority of these roadies have signed up for the biggest mountain bike race in Utah, which is Park City Point to Point.
Sweet.
And they've done it. And, I think 2 of them really care about the race.
Yeah.
The majority, I was shocked. I'm like, are they serious? It's hard to get into it. I mean, it
Yeah.
closes pretty quickly. There's a cap. They all have committed to that race when they're normally roadies
Yeah.
to be together.
Sure. Community.
What they recognized was that in their lives and in my life, frankly, I'm like, peer pressure. I'm like, well, I got to get in,
Yeah.
but I'm doing it because I know that from March to September 1,
Mhm.
I'm going to spend hours
Right.
outside with good guys
Yeah.
in a positive way, connecting, communicating in community together, doing something that's positive, for stress and coping and
Yeah.
all of the reasons. But none of them would say that.
Sure.
What they would really think inside is, I'm a cyclist. Their identity,
Yep.
right? It goes back to that. How do you perceive yourself? What is the story you tell about yourself? And for most of us, what we have recognized is we need to replace I am insert failure,
Mhm.
struggle, whatever, with I am a cyclist. And what does that mean? Well,
Yeah.
it means something positive.
Yeah. Yeah.
None of them are about to go to the Tour de France and win anything.
Sure.
I mean, we're a bunch of middle-aged wannabes, but the identity in the community, it just it infuses so much good in life. So talk more about, I mean, you're scaffolding young kids to join group rides
Yeah.
to go to school. Tell us more about that, why,
Yeah.
and how that gives them community and identity at a young age.
Yeah. That word scaffolding is key to what we've been doing. And so, yeah, I'm all about movement. I'm all about getting more kids on bikes, as we've talked about. And a few years ago, I saw a video on social media. Again, the benefit of social media, because you're exposed to
Yeah.
different ideas and different things. I was exposed to a video of Coach Sam Balto up in Portland, Oregon, and he did a bike bus. And I'm like, what is a bike bus? What is that? Well, it's a group ride of, parents or teachers or whoever, and they all get together. You have a parent in the back and a parent in the front, and they all ride to school together. And this is Portland, and so it's definitely a big cycling
Yeah.
community. And they had, I don't know, 100 kids or something. Just such a cool video. And what Coach Balto said is they just planned on doing it. It was on Earth Day. They just planned on doing it one day. Well, then a kid came to him and they said, "Are we doing this next week?" And he said, "I guess we are." Right? Like, if you guys want it, like, sure, let's keep it going. So he just kept doing it, making these videos, and it just blew up. And then my wife and I, we saw that video, and we love to ride. We love to ride with our kids. We have one of those cargo bikes that we throw our kids on the back. And I've said this before, and I stick to this. Besides our house, that's been the most important purchase we've ever made in our lives, is that cargo bike. Because
Wow.
because it's changed our lifestyle. It's changed, like, oh, we can ride to the library. We can ride wherever. We just throw the kids on the back. It reduces the barriers of being able to, let's just jump in the car, like whatever. But it really just helped us embrace the commute bike lifestyle, right? We
Yeah.
have,
An experience.
yep,
No one cares about the car ride to the
yep,
grocery store,
yep,
but on a bike, it's an experience.
yeah.
Wow.
It's been awesome. And so school drop off lines, we're zooming past all the cars, front row, like it's so cool. And we've been able to scaffold for our kids. They ride with us on the bike, but as they get bigger, then they ride their own bike, and however far they get, then they get a little tired. We throw their bike on, we throw them on, and we come back. Well, our sons now are riding up Provo Canyon just fine, right? Like, because they've
Yeah.
built up to that. Anyway, so with all that in mind, we saw these videos and we thought, well, we ride to school. How cool would it be to get other kids to ride with us, right? And we thought, "Well, right, let's try it. Like, let's talk to a few of the people." The first year, it kind of flopped. We had maybe 4 or 5 kids ride with us, which is fine. And that's, yeah, it's not necessarily a failure, because for those 4 or 5 kids,
Yeah.
they loved it, right? And they were out there and they were wanting to do it. And so then we switched up some of our routes and had some more participation. Well, this last year, I mean, we have, man, over 70 kids that ride with us. And we do it every week. And what's been so cool about it is we have these meetup spots, and this is where I've kind of used my creativity. It's my creative outlet of, like, making videos about it, because I love being creative and
Yeah.
editing different things. And as I've made these different videos and shown us doing this, so many people have reached out to me and said, "I want to start one of those bike buses. How did you, like, what is?" And so I've been able to discuss with them and talk with them. So that's been super cool to be able to
That's awesome.
inspire.
Yeah.
And we've let these kids know that ride with us, like, hey, what you guys are doing right here is super impactful for us. And it's also super impactful for other people, like within our own community here, but also outside of this, because
Mm.
other people are wanting to join and do different things. And so, but the scaffolding of building them up and riding with us, again, we're not, super hardcore competitive, or we're racing, or we're dropping kids. It's like we're all going together. Some people are going to hold back. Some people are going to go, a little bit faster. And what's been really cool is we've had the participation of our school principal. We didn't invite him. He just came out. It was so cool. We're like, "Who's that?" He's like in his 60s, and all the kids are like, "Who's that older guy? That's Mr. Johnson, Mr. Johnson." And then all of a sudden, that broke down the barrier, right? And they were
Yeah.
like, "Mr. Johnson rides with this. This is so cool." Well, then he invited Mr. Crown over, who's the cool 6th grade teacher. He came out with us, and he shows up on his BMX bike that's like all tricked out. And I'm just thinking, "Do you ride? Like, tell me about where you ride and everything." He's telling me, and I looked up his videos and was like, "You're legit. Like, you're good." So, anyways, we made a video of him, like, doing all these cool tricks, and
Rad, right?
oh
This
my
this
gosh,
is rad.
so
This is
cool.
the literal rad guy,
Yep,
you know?
so cool.
Got the bike pegs and
Yep,
bags, and
yep.
that's
And
awesome.
he's doing all these tricks and stuff. And we made this video, and it got, over 1 million views. And it was so cool, because all these BMX pros were seeing, this is a teacher who cares about his community. This is a teacher who is going to go out there
Hmm.
and ride and teach these kids. And when I mean, we rode this morning, and the kids see him, it was a little bit colder today. So we had like 15, 20 kids,
Yeah.
but they were all hyping him up. "Mr. Crownover, what's up? What's up?" So it's built this community, the scaffolding of, like, all being together. There's a specific situation where this girl earlier this year, her dad and her pull up to our first bike bus stop, and they didn't know about our bike bus. And I went over there because they looked kind of like, "Oh, which way do we go?" or whatever. And I said, "Hey, you guys here for the bike bus?" And he was like, "No, we're just here to bike to school." And I said, "What school do you go to?" It was our school. And I said, "Well, you're welcome to join us. This is actually what we do every Friday. We all ride together." And he was like, "Oh, that's so cool." He's like, "We've wanted to get her more exercise. We wanted to get her more involved in doing things." I said, "Absolutely. Like, come out with us." And she looked a little apprehensive. And I said, "Hey, Mr. Johnson's over there, Mr. Crown over there." Her face lights up. "Mr. Johnson's here?" What? Like, all of a sudden, there was that connection of someone else is modeling what this is, and this is going to be exciting. This is going to be cool.
Yeah.
Well, that first day, she's biking, her tires are a little bit low and she's kind of going slow. Unfortunately, she didn't finish with our whole group because she was just kind of slowing up. But throughout the week, her dad was riding with her. I saw him.
Mm.
Like they were going, thank you. I get a little emotional when I talk about this because the dad was walking or riding with her, and he says to me, she didn't want a bike. She didn't want to do this, but when she saw you guys, like it inspired her more to do it. So they're going throughout the week. She's building up her endurance. She's building up her strength. The next week, she's right in the front. She's charging. She's just owning it, and it was
Yeah.
so cool. Um, and she just keeps asking, "When's the next one? When's the next one? When's the next one?" And that family, as we've gotten to know them, they've been through some hard stuff, right? So, like that speaks to so much of that social aspect that I love of being involved and helping the community and giving them those experiences through that movement. Um, and that's just one of the experiences that we've had. And there's been so many other parents that have said, I didn't know how to, my kids didn't know how to ride a bike. And by seeing you guys riding, they've said, Dad, will you teach me how to ride a bike? And one dad kind of said, I feel like kind of a failure. His dad, I haven't taught my kid how to bike. I said, never too late. It's never
Yeah.
too late. Let's go to the parking lot. Here's some bikes. Let's get them going. And as they increase and scaffold that up, then again, they ride with the group, but then they also do it on their own. And it empowers them to say like, oh, wow, this isn't, I don't have to just do this with the group. Like, this is awesome, but I can also do this on my own. And that scaffolding builds that confidence.
Yeah.
Because within, there's a famous book, The Anxious Generation, right? And he talks so much about like, if we suppress our kids to the point where like, hey, I want to go out and do this, and we say, that's not safe. Like, we can't do that. You can't do that. Then all of a sudden, when it's time for them to make that jump, when it's time for them to get their license, or when it's time for them to go to college,
Yeah.
they've been suppressed and held back so much. But if you teach them like, hey, yeah, like we can do this. Here's the risks. How do we mitigate some of those risks? How do we build up the strength to get to that point? Then it teaches them that confidence of like, oh, I was able to ride my bike to school as
Yeah.
a third grader.
Yeah.
I can do this, So that's the cool thing of the scaffolding of the bike bus. That's really been such an awesome benefit to be a part of. So yeah.
Yeah. So much good there. I mean, and thank you for the emotion. I
Yeah.
mean, you're seeing and recognizing the implications, right, on people's lives. And it's funny, as you went through that, you used the term confidence several times, scaffolding confidence. Levo has 4 C's that we talk about every meeting all day long. And you just went through them and why they're so important in the mental health space. You started with connection,
Yeah.
a little girl and her dad who are connecting on a bike, drives communication. That communication creates a culture of care.
Mhm.
So connection, communication, and culture, it creates an environment in relationships of care, that there's caring going on. And when there's caring going on that way, it creates confidence,
Um,
and so those 4 C's are just constantly playing through our head, at Levo, that we want to create an environment where connection, communication is a culture of care. And when it happens, confidence rises.
yeah.
I mean, there's a whole generation today, in the state of Utah. We are a funnel. My wife's a marriage and family therapist. I know you're a funnel in mental health too. People come to you and they flock to you. We receive a lot of phone calls from LDS families
Yeah.
with what you just described, which is we raised our child. They were great, functioned, did really well through school, went on an LDS mission and came home after 8 weeks
Mhm.
or whatever the reason,
Yeah.
And what they move on to go through is I wasn't scaffolding through my teen years capability
Yeah.
to be self-reliant, self-author,
Yeah.
have my own just grit to do hard things.
Yeah.
And so what you're describing there about kids at a young age scaffolding confidence
Yeah.
is enormous,
Mhm.
And so, I mean, if you go full circle back to where we started, children today, I mean, I was at dinner the other day with my wife and I watched a family come and sit down, pretty big family,
Mhm.
young kids, and they pull up what are they called? The chair for a little baby to sit in
Yeah.
and to eat food, and they immediately put a tablet in front of the baby.
Yeah.
Now, whatever, no, like no judgment, right? No judgment, right? I know, like they're gonna go crazy in a restaurant, and so we need to distract them, right?
Yeah.
I think it's symbolic today of give them something to distract them
Yep.
because
Yeah.
raising kids is hard, and I need to work or whatever. But if they're not scaffolding along with their technology capability,
Right.
the ability to just do physical things or do hard things, at some point, it's going to come back to their confidence or
Yeah.
lack of confidence. So,
Yeah.
if you don't mind, maybe just talk a little bit about that. What are you seeing in your practice? What are you seeing specifically, maybe with the youth demographic?
Mhm.
How is the inability to have kind of confidence of self
Yeah.
impacting lives?
Yeah. I've learned this from a past therapist I worked with at an old youth crisis shelter, and I've always taken this with me. He said, "Boredom is a skill. Being bored is a skill." And I was like, "What are you talking about?"
That's a paradox. That's an
Right?
oxymoron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really hit home to me recently working with a lot of, again, kind of teenagers, young adult males who they say, "I'm scared of being bored. I have to be doing something. I have to be consuming something or on something." Like, when was the last time you were just alone with your thoughts? I can't do that, like, because then my thoughts are all over the place, right? So then again, that opens up so much more to discuss, but just the skill of being bored and just being able to sit and be okay with being bored for a few minutes
Yeah.
and being bored and being okay with just, "Man, this is kind of like, I don't know what should I do here?" Besides just reaching for your phone and that instant dopamine hit, but just reflecting, thinking,
Yeah.
processing what you're going through and scaffolding up that capacity. It's just like your mind is a muscle. You got to work on, you know, building that up to the point where it's, safe and healthy. I also think back to, as you were talking, a common thing that I'll say to the kids as we ride on the bike bus and also with my own sons as we ride, we go into a pretty stiff headwind in the morning. We're going up, going east towards the mountain. And this wind is so bitter and cold. And a common phrase that I'll say is strong wind makes for strong legs. Like, let's go, let's get this,
Yeah. Lean
like,
in.
yeah, lean into it, pedal. I'll get your back a few times. Let's push through it. And then other times when it's cold, I say, instead of saying, "I'm so cold, I'm freezing," say, "I feel alive." It's that paradox. It's that shift. As you're like, I'm alive. I get to experience
Yeah.
this coldness right now. Now, again, you got to be safe. I'm not encouraging hypothermia or, intense cold
Oh,
plunges or whatever.
no.
But, there's a benefit to doing some of those things to where you do kind of train your system, train your mind to say, "I feel alive and this is helping me become stronger. This is helping me become healthy," versus, and my kids fall into this is so boring. Why do we have to do this? I don't want to do this. But a lot of that just internal dialogue and that those connections that you make in your brain, like that sticks with you for a long time. And I think back to many of my coaches and many of the people that, in my life that had a lot of influence, and a lot of those phrases, they have stuck with me and they've
Totally.
shaped my perspective on life. And so being able to recognize these experiences for what they are and as a benefit versus, "Oh, I can't do this. I'm so bored,"
Yeah.
it's a skill. It's a skill to master.
Boredom, that's interesting that you describe it because I think that, again, we were a funnel, right? Families reach out to us
Yeah.
all the time. One of the challenges that we are often hearing is, I'm afraid to be with my thoughts. And that concept of now that I don't have a device or, frankly, consumed by noise,
Yeah.
people are afraid to sit. Time becomes literally anxiety inducing
Yeah.
when they don't have noise constantly
Yeah.
around them, something to just kind of keep them engaged or focused on. How do you unwind it?
Yeah.
How do you solve it? You're
Sure.
you're the fix it guy, right? You're the Jedi of mental health. So what are the tools? I mean, you talked about just the reinforcing loop. How do
Yeah.
you break the loop?
Yeah. Recognition is the first key, right? And a lot of times, if people are ready to come to therapy, they're already in that. And sometimes parents will kind of make their kids come to therapy. That's a little bit harder to deal with. Honestly, it's kind of a fun challenge on my end. It's like, okay, how are we gonna?
Yeah.
Which road are we gonna get to where we need to go? But a lot of times, as adults come in, and some teenagers as well, like they are recognizing they want to change, right? So that recognition is huge. Um, But also too, I mean, teaching them some just basic concepts of deep breathing, of meditation, of being with your own thoughts. I mean, one of the best forms of treatment for trauma is yoga, being in touch with your mind and your body and the spiritual component or the nature component, but also being able to be centered and breathe through your thoughts and through discomfort. And you train your brain to say, like, I went through something hard and discomforting. I
Yeah.
can sit through some of these hard thoughts that come through because I know that they're going to come and they go.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, so many principles of our Western, philosophies on psychology and counseling come from a lot of Eastern traditions
Yeah.
of Buddhism and Zen and
Yeah.
yoga, all these things. And now we're finally starting to recognize, like, oh my gosh, like this isn't just kind of some kooky thing. Like there's something to this.
Yeah.
And we move our body and we stay centered and we breathe. So again, I'm not here to say you got to go to yoga or you got to go meditate, but I just invite them to consider some of those things. Oh, meditation doesn't work for me. Well, tell me about the time you tried it. Well, it was a app on my phone and I got all these emails and, I was like, okay, I'm glad you tried. Like,
Yeah.
think about some of these other ways that you can do it. Just going for a walk, this movement can be meditation, right? This mindfulness of just being present and training your brain to not always have to have an earphone in or to be consumed by stuff, but just listening to the thoughts, listening to the birds, like just connecting.
Yeah.
And so just being comfortable with some of those. And yeah, some of those dark, heavy, intense thoughts, they are scary and they can be intense. And so that's where that professional help can kind of come in. And if there's medications that need to be in place that can kind of quiet the noise down, by all means, absolutely. That can absolutely help, right?
Yeah.
And there's also these other holistic approaches and alternatives, things that can definitely help. But giving your mind and your body the options, because we feel so stuck, there is no option here. There's plenty of options. We just got to be open to some of them and trying them and not discount them before we even try it. That's not going to
Yeah.
work, I kind of laugh sometimes as a therapist. Have you ever tried like deep breathing? And one kid's like, breathing doesn't work for me. Breathing doesn't work. I said, you're alive, aren't you? Like, breathing is working.
Oh, 100% survival
Yeah.
rate.
So we have a good laugh about
That's
that.
funny.
But the quickest way to go from this fight or flight to this rest or reset is deep breath. Again, that's something you can do instantly to
Yeah.
holding it and it's just boom. All of a sudden your those chemicals in your brain shift and you can relax. So just simple skills like that and over and over in repetition. That's where we begin. That's where we start. And
Yeah.
that's where it can be cool to have kind of a therapist, coach, person to kind of talk with about some of those things and knowing that, again, another kid said to me, well, why did I tell you anything? Yeah, I don't even know you. I said, that's kind of the point. Kind of the point. Because if I don't know you, I don't know your teachers. I don't know your friends. I don't know. I'm not going to go to him and say, guess what Johnny just told me? Oh my gosh, he's struggling with this fat. Like, whatever you say in here, besides if you're going to hurt yourself or hurt other people or someone's hurting you, like it's going to stay here. And that's the point. Like to be able to uncover some of that and just like say, oh wow, like, yeah, like I've had some of these thoughts, but I'm able to voice them and breathe through it and work through it. And there's a healthy connection that all of a sudden starts to happen between the mind and the body that brings that confidence. So yeah, a lot of.
For those who may hear that, I often will say and try to reiterate, there are people who hear about therapy and they're highly skeptical.
Yeah.
How can talking do anything?
Right.
But to just bring this back, to what I said a few minutes ago about the gentleman who reached out to me on social media, that hour-long conversation was interesting, but really it finished with him describing a really traumatic event that happened to him 8 years ago.
Yeah.
It took him several minutes through tears, grown man, through tears, what I would call a man's man. I mean, this guy's a man's man.
Sure.
When he finally got it out of what had happened to him, he was shocked for a minute. He just was quiet. And then he said, I never thought I would be able to say that out loud.
Yeah.
I can't fathom how good I feel right now.
Right.
Right. And I'm not you. I'm just someone who happened to take the phone call and to listen.
Yeah.
But that was so meaningful to him.
Yeah.
That was on a Sunday. By Tuesday, he reached out and he said, I can't imagine why I've been holding this in for 8 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it taught me and I've not been through what he's been through, but the power of just speaking and communicating with someone who is independent of your life,
Yeah.
unbiased,
Yeah.
is super powerful.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for lifting and making lighter others' lives. I mean, what you're doing is deeply meaningful. It's life changing. So thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you. It's an honor to, I always say, man, my job is so weird. It's so weird. Like I get to sit and hear people's stories or people that they would never tell anybody else. It's such a weird dynamic, but it's such an honor and a privilege to be able to sit with that and
Yeah.
to help people through that. So it's really, really cool.
Okay. Last question for you.
Yeah.
I'm curious,
Uh-huh.
how I ask this, but speaking to therapists often, they say what you just, it's an honor to
Yeah.
sit with.
Yeah.
What is it about sitting with people in their suffering that is sacred?
Mm.
And if that's the right word to even
Sure.
use, you may choose to use a different term,
Yeah.
but what is it about that?
Man, you see like a light bulb moment or you see something that happens and you feel it. Like it's not just that you see it, but you feel it. Like it's transformative at a point for them. And you know that like that's what's been cool about working with people a little bit longer term versus what I did before. And there's spaces for all of that. But what's cool is when you develop a therapeutic relationship for somebody and you see the struggle, and then all of a sudden you see something happen months down the road, and you're like, and you can kind of pinpoint and go back to and
Yeah.
recognize some of that. And it's, yeah, it's, I don't know. There's just something about it. There's just a feeling that's really an honor. It's really cool to be a part of it. And a lot of times, it's just you and that person, right? And so, which it all very well should be, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, there's something about that that's just really an honor. It's really cool.
That what you're describing in that relationship, to go back to a term you were using a few minutes, just that scaffolding.
Yeah.
That scaffolding takes time and trust. And, that's why they call it the therapeutic alliance. It
Yeah.
truly is an alliance of two people, who trust each other. So it's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks again.
One thing I want to speak on real quick, and
Yeah,
I say a
of course.
lot to a lot of like the young adult males or the middle-aged adult males that come in and see me, because one of the very first things I say to them, I say, this is not a job interview. I don't want to hear what the answer is.
They want to perform.
Yeah, they want to like, oh, this and this, and here's
Yeah.
my history and this and that, and here's my resume, and it's not a job interview. And a lot of times they'll say, oh, sorry, I went off path there and talked about these other things. I say, that's the point. That's the point. Like to be able to discuss things and interweave and come back to and be able to recognize that and have somebody to guide you through those. Like that is the point. And for somebody then to also connect the dots on what their goals are for improvement, and to work through that. But yeah, I don't. Those are all wonderful things, but I don't want to hear all the right answers. Like I want to hear these other things, and it's not about what I want either. It's just about like your experience through that, and the more open and kind of vulnerable and real you can be, the more beneficial for that. So anybody seeking or thinking about therapy, that's one thing that I always tell them. Like it's not a job interview. Just go in there and discuss things with them.
Yeah. Well, you're clearly good at it. I think you have you're approachable and vulnerable, and I think it's awesome. So thanks again. How do we share with people how to find you?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, my website is called ridethisout.com. Again, a play on biking and everything. I run a blog and podcast on there about how people have benefited from riding bikes mentally, socially, emotionally, all those things. And then I also have a therapeutic portion of that where they can get in contact with me if they are interested in working with me if they live in the state of Utah. Because that's where I am licensed. I also, my social media on my Instagram, it's at ride.this.out. And it's fun. I try to put things out there as far as just kind of inspirational videos and showing people the fun of biking with other people and just the connection of mental health and that. So that's how you contact me.
Cool.
So
We'll put all the links, in the posts and things that we put out there to make sure that people know how to find you.
cool.
Thanks again.
Yeah, thanks, Tom.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Of course.